Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining with me today for a quick presentation on reporting suspicious activity. I often get asked questions in the community, and one of the most common things that I say back is report suspicious activity. If something seems unusual, report it. In most cases in the future, I would suggest reporting that situation. So it seems to be a common reoccurrence that I'm reminding the community about what is suspicious activity. And so today I thought it'd be important just to take some time to break down really what is suspicious activity and how one reports it. So my name is Katie Zerl, and I'm the Crime Prevention Coordinator with Bloomington Police. My contact information is here on the screen, so feel free to contact me if you have any follow-up questions after this presentation, and I'd be happy to answer them. So when we talk about reporting suspicious activity, I wanted to go over how do you identify suspicious activity, what activities should be reported, and then what specifically should be reported when you are calling in to report activity. When we look at suspicious activity, there is really no right or wrong answer. So that's the thing I really want to have as a key takeaway today, that there is no real definition that says that really is suspicious or that really wasn't suspicious. It really can refer to any number of things. And it often can be very confusing, much like this picture I have up here that has a picture of a stop sign, and then below it, it says no stopping anytime. Just like with suspicious activity, it can often be confusing. It's that concept of, should I report it? Maybe I shouldn't. Is this weird? Maybe it's not. So oftentimes we see suspicious activity kind of has that context with it. People question about what should I do or what should I be aware of? And it really can refer to any specific incident or an event, individuals or group of individuals, or any kind of circumstance that seems unusual or out of place. For example, I often like to tell people on the block that I live on, I know it's pretty common for what cars are going to be at the homes near my residence. Now, if you came down my street, you probably really wouldn't have an idea as to when my neighbor have a white minivan in their driveway, or is that really unusual? Would my other neighbors come and go frequently or not very frequently? But living in my neighborhood, we know the things that are common here and what would be expected. So anytime something seems unusual or out of place, that's where I would say it falls into that suspicious activity. For example, I have a neighbor that I know if a car would show up and people are lingering around the home, that they're elderly residents that live there, and this probably doesn't seem most fitting, and I should take the time to either contact them and verify things are fine and that maybe they have a maintenance person over, or I should report it and to the police to say, you know, something seems off and unusual. This isn't the typical behavior for what I see in my neighborhood. So it's anything really that stands out to you as being unusual, not common, something, maybe a noise that you're hearing, or people. It really can fall into any of those categories. So what kind of things would we like to have you report? Anything that seems to be an illegal activity, if you're seeing something that appears to be drug dealings or other illegal activities happening, even if you don't know for sure, we would just prefer for you to report it and tell us what seems unusual or off to you. Anything that just seems unusual as a whole. I've had situations in neighborhoods where people have said to me, you know, I did see a guy who went in their backyard, but I just assumed he was there to do some kind of homework or construction. And I thought about it and it seemed off and weird, but yet I didn't do anything about it. And then they come to find out that the home had been burglarized. So it's these kind of incidences that stand out as anything that seems different or unusual that wouldn't be normal. anything that catches your eye or leaves you with a bit of an unsettled stomach or that feeling of, something just seems weird about it. Any of those kind of times, report it. I like to say you can blame it on me and say, Katie, police told me I should call in things, and something just seems weird and off, so I'm calling in because she's told me I should. And I'm happy to be that guinea pig for you if that helps people call in to our dispatch and shares more information on suspicious activity. Certainly blame me anytime. I want and encourage you all to be calling in. Anything that seems to be a dangerous situation. If you're hearing an argument unfolding, somebody screaming or yelling for help, those are all situations that we'd want you to call in to 911. And again, anything that just doesn't seem right, anything that kind of gets you to do a double take or hesitate, we want you to be calling that in. And again, it's that anytime you have that question, even if it's after the fact that it kind of has been gnawing at you for a while and you thought, that was really weird when I saw that person go into my neighbor's backyard. Even though it happened a few hours ago, I still have this unsettled feeling about it, or that thought that maybe I should have called. You can still call us and tell us what you saw or experienced, because it may be more of the situation, information for the situation we're working on, and could be quite valuable as well. So when we're calling in things to report, we don't want you just to say, hey, I saw a guy walking down my street. What we really want to do is educate the community about the importance of what you're observing so that you can share that with the dispatcher. So when police do respond, or investigators after the fact, we really have good concrete data to go off of. So using that common statement of, there was a guy on our street and it seemed weird. Sure, we'd want you to call that in so we know if something seems off. But if you would call us and say, there was a male who was roughly in his 50s, he was taller and slender, he was bald, or he had a stocking cap on, anything that you can notice about their appearance, he looked disheveled or he looked put together, he had on blue tennis shoes or a black sweatshirt. Anything that you can notice is really more important to the officers and investigators than the community often realizes. If we don't have information to go off of, we have to really break down everything that's being seen to try to determine what could be part of this scenario or situation. But when we have these concrete pieces of information, it becomes so much more useful for officers to respond quickly and make effective contacts and note important information in their reports. So when investigative work happens, they also have much better and accurate information to go off of. So I always encourage people to test this out. The skill ability when you're in a public place, a grocery store, or in a shopping center, for example. Put this in a practice once or twice, so that way when a situation does unfold, you've trained your body to know what to look for and how to be observant. So I often encourage people to say, for example, if you're in the grocery store, what if someone's wallet was stolen right here in front of me? What could I notice? What key factors could I take away from this scenario? And just doing that a couple times, it really files it away in our brain. So when a situation does unfold, we then just pull out that file and can say, yep, I've done this. I understand it. Here's the things I need to now look for and be observant about. So again, kind of note these things and really try to make use of this in the future when you are calling things in. As well, it's important to know your location. Knowing where you are is very helpful. Oftentimes, people may not have the exact address. If you have it, that's the best. But if you don't, cross streets or major intersections. We're fortunate here in Bloomington that we have a dispatch center that is local to Bloomington, so they know a large pieces of the city that most people don't even know. You can tell them landmarks, and things you know and see, and they would be able to help get officers to a situation relatively quickly, just based on the landmarks that someone is sharing. Describe as much of the location in detail as possible. Don't just say, for example, the grocery store parking lot, but say the parking lot with the third row over roughly, so far to the south, or whatever information you can notice about the location, again, is just as important as you notice information about individual people. So on this next slide, I'd like to do a quick activity with you. We're going to just take a quick peek at a slide that's up here, and then we'll talk about it a bit as well. So I'm going to put this slide up and take a second or two here to look at what you see. And then we're going to take a step back and talk about, oops, sorry about that. Take a step back and talk about what do we see in this slide. It's often very important that we understand and recognize that everyone is not going to all see and observe the same information. So for example, when I put up that slide, some people may have noticed things that are differently than others. And when I give this presentation a live experience with real people in front of me, it's never does everyone have the same answer to this. Never does everyone say they saw the same things. So it's important to take away from this is that we all have information that becomes important and relevant. And we can't underestimate the knowledge that we have. And it may be more important than what somebody else has already shared or what information they observed. So for example, when we look back at this, I may have just noticed that it was 12:04, and that may have been the only thing I saw. Where someone else may have noticed the guy has a number 25 on his shirt. Someone might have noticed a license plate and a broken headlight or broken windshield. Someone may have noticed eyeglasses or hats. And so it's having all pieces of a puzzle. And police work, our work is to take all pieces of that puzzle and put them together. But a lot of times we don't have all the puzzle pieces. And so it's important for the community to know that they have oftentimes pieces to the puzzle that can really be helpful in our completing the work that needs to be done. So for example, if you know someone said, oh, I already called the police on this situation, don't underestimate the value of what you saw, because what you noticed as suspicious, what you could have observed may have been equally as important, if not more important, than what has been reported. So kind of keep this in mind that there isn't, again, one clear answer to suspicious activity and using our observation skills. It's really about just being aware of as much information as we can and sharing as much information as we can. So how do we report? We want you to call 911. There's often the idea that we don't call 911 unless it's a major medical emergency or a major crime unfolding, but really that's not how we rely on 911 now. That was often very common practice in generations ago. 911 was only really relied upon in those emergency situations, where now we want to be better about proactive policing, taking information ahead of time, versus being reactive to crimes and following up. We'd rather have you call ahead. So anytime you can call 911, you can often just start by saying, when they answer from 911, you can say, this isn't an emergency, so if you need to put me on hold, you can. And that will even help the dispatch know right away as they triage through calls. But 911 is your place to go. Don't ever question or hesitate. We want you to call there, and you're not a bother when you do call there. Dispatchers are excellent and trained at what they do, and they know when they need to put something on hold or call you back. They will be able to balance those calls that are coming in and utilize the information as they best see fit. Now, they often will also ask you some follow-up questions. Answer those as best as you can. But also I like to say, don't fill in blanks with information if you truly don't know that information. So if they ask, well, what color was the car? Don't just, the car was, I think, gray. Instead, say, if you don't know, say, I think it was a dark color. It could have been black or blue or gray. So oftentimes people want to provide information and will just fill in a blank to share, even though it may not be accurate. So keep that in mind too, that when you're sharing, that make sure you're giving things that you know to be to your best of your ability. And remain calm and stay on the phone. There's a level of anxiety and nervousness that comes with calling 911, and that's common across the board. It's just kind of comes with the territory of calling 911. And we know this, and I think you knowing this as well will help you remain calm. Just know you may not know all the answers, but provide as much detail as you can. Be prepared to follow those answer follow-up questions, and know that anything that you share can be of value. So again, just do the best you can to participate and share what you've observed. We just be grateful for any information you can share. In addition, this talks a little bit, I like this comic that says, police cartoonists have released a drawing of a burglary suspect, and it's just the generic burglary type cartoonist photo. And it kind of makes me laugh because this is, if we don't know what information the public has, then police can only go off of the information that they know, which is not oftentimes helpful. So the more information we can get from the community and citizens, the better it is for our law enforcement to be able to respond and do investigative work, so we can help keep our community safer. So it's really that partnership with the community to help us as best as you can as well. And I also like this to mention that there is no call would be a silly call. Sometimes people say, I'm not sure, it seems weird to call this in. For example, on the top right here, it says, Friday night, Boone police received a report of suspicious behavior in the 1300 block of Marshall Street. Turned out to be 4 males with flashlights comparing facial hair growth. So if you call something in and it seems unusual or off, we'll find humor in the call then. So either way, no harm done. I read through pages of calls every day, and if things like this would show up that are silly calls, in the end, I'll get humor out of it. So know that your time has not been wasted. So oftentimes people are afraid to call in because they're just uncertain, but don't be afraid to call it in. And I also work with neighborhood watch groups. So this comic makes me laugh that says, honey, have you met the new neighbors yet? And has unique pieces of clothing. So anytime something seems unusual or off, we'd like you to call it in. Key thing for this would be things like recently we've had a number of catalytic converter thefts. So if you're hearing sawing noises, grinding of metal, if you're seeing people approach vehicles or have tools with them, anything along those lines, we would for sure want you to be calling into 911 as suspicious. We've had some great partnership with the community where a community member had heard this happening near their home and called it in saying, I'm hearing what sounds to be sawing of metal, and I see some lights going on around a vehicle with flashlights. And we were able to make a great quality arrest of someone who was a group of individuals who were stealing catalytic converters. So oftentimes, a lot of our police work is only effective because of the partnership with people in the community. So don't ever underestimate the value of what you're seeing and observing and how important that can be to preventing crime and making positive differences where you live. So hopefully that gives you a bit more information on things that are suspicious, what you would do to report them, and how you can just be the best key witness that you can in helping our dispatch and officers. And again, here is my contact information. If you would have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me here. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.